We're live. Batman, nice to see you. Thank you for being with us. This is just going to be a one-person live stream, just for you, so we can make this a real personal live stream. Sound fun? Okay, let me see. All right, Batman astronaut. Where are you from, Batman? Don't say the Batcave. Shannon, thank you for being here. Bend over, welcome. Welcome, brother. Julie, hey, sweetheart. I thought I would only get one or two people. This is awesome. Great to see you, friends. Well, Bug, we got the family here. This is beautiful. This is beautiful. Travis, this is nice. We're getting everyone's coming in now. We're at 10 people. This is beautiful. Well, hey, gang, Super is here under protest. She thought there was only going to be one person from Romania watching, and I was like, that could be a relative. I never know. Julie. All right, guys, I'm going to dive right in, and I hope you guys have a tolerance for any of this that might be repetitive for some of you. Recently, I've been seeing some other UFO researchers asserting that extraterrestrials were not peaceful and that they were not even neutral, that they were more likely malevolent, or in a way that is basically not in our interest. And quite a few UFO researchers have been saying this lately. And it's very disturbing to me for a bunch of reasons. First of all, it's not true. Factually, the vast preponderance of the evidence empirically states that the majority of all UFO encounters have been peaceful. Peaceful. And many beneficial or positive. In fact, the number that are above the line of neutral, positive, far outweigh the ones that are below the line, negative. And I think if it's true that UFOs are going to nuclear sites and trying to warn us there, what would you call that act? That's not it's not neutral. It's benevolent, it's peaceful, but it's even more than that. It's kind of caring, right? Kind of loving, right? To say you could kill yourself, I'm worried about you. That's literally what's happening time and time again. So the vast preponderance of the evidence states that UFOs are definitely peaceful. But we're going to bust it down, break it down for people. Okay, so let's dive in, gang. Let's do this. Let's look at the case history. And there's a lot of cases. And yes, there's good cases and there's bad cases. And I think we have to look at them very carefully, because there can be a lot of confusion. Because there are government programs and projects that have left people injured, and there's a long history of that. So it's important not to confuse those with extraterrestrial. And I think it's important not to confuse situations that don't have really strong evidence and say that's definitely extraterrestrial. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, let's change the camera screen here for a moment. And let's talk about animal mutilations for just a moment. Animal mutilations is a very valid point about, hey, what about animal mutilations? That's not peaceful. That's, malicious. Well, I think we're not certain that that's ET. Right? There's no absolute definite evidence that that is ET. And there's a lot of evidence that it could be something going on with the government, because there's oftentimes black helicopters associated with these animal mutilations. And also, I think it's very important to point out a couple points about animal mutilations. they've done tests with carcasses, and oftentimes predators and wild animals go for the exact spots that are easy. There's places where there's already a hole, like, the mouth, the eyes, the nose, the rectum, the genitals. I think that's the first time I've said both of those words on the channel. um, and oftentimes they cut out things more precisely than you think, but then as they dry up, those cuttings straighten out more. It's kind of like it's a natural process. But there are other cases where there's really weird stuff that goes on with cattle, where there's definitely something going on. So I think it's important to look at, the whole full spectrum, because nothing's black or white completely. I think there's a lot of gray. I think the government is doing some stuff, to tell you the truth. I do think the U.S. government has done stuff with special forces and helicopters and cows and things like that. I don't think that's impossible to believe that that is possible. So I believe that that is very possible. And I think some of the cases kind of point to that. So let's take animal mutilations off the ET table. Can we agree to do that? I think without definitive proof that it's ET, I think it's not fair to say that the animal abductions and animal mutilations are all ET. Thank you, Julie, for officially doing that. Off the table. Thank you, Super, for a second. Thank you. All right, next we go to a much more complicated issue. And that is abductions. Now, this is a very, very complicated issue. I'm sure in the zoo, or in a zoo, that the animals that have veterinarians come in and give them tranquilizers and vaccinate them or fix them or do all sorts of different things, I'm sure those animals in the zoo think those veterinarians and those zookeepers are bastards and that they're bad and things like that. But as we know, the veterinarians and zookeepers are trying to keep them alive, even though they live a shorter life in the zoo, and I hate zoos. Ayn, such a pleasure to see you. Love you, love you. Love my family. I love you guys. I really do. And it's always the same people, and I really feel like we're growing as a family, getting to know each other, and it's just really cool. So I think with abductions, a lot of the times we don't know really 100% what's going on. I think there's other factors that come into play. They've proven a lot of people who have had abductions have had positive experiences. If you look at this study, which I love, it's a meta study. It says the vast majority of these encounters and experiences have been positive, like 87%. Now, there are cases, negative cases, and I think you cannot chalk all of those up to mental illness. And I don't think you can chalk up all of them to military, my lab stuff, military abductions. And David, pleasure to see you, David. Thank you for joining us. I think that with abductions, there's so many different things that come into play. Even if ET is doing that one portion of it, it is conceivable that that portion is kind of like the veterinarian at the zoo. The zoo animal thinks the veterinarian is doing something terrible to them, but in fact, the veterinarian might be saving their life. And we've seen that with many cases, from Travis Walton, who of course was blasted and was healed for 5 days. There's a lot of cases like that where people got healed, had tumors and things removed and everything. So we can kind of take the animal mutilation and the abduction thing on the side for a second. We'll get back to that question. Was there a question here? Let me see what that question was. And someone else wanted to know the answer too, I think. What was it? I'd love to hear your opinion on the book, Allies of Humanity. Well, you know what? I haven't read the book, so unfortunately I can't. But I will check it out now that you said so. And now here's the third, and I think this is the really important place to look at when trying to discover if ETs are peaceful or neutral, or are they better than peaceful, or are they bad and malicious and evil? And let's look at the case history. In the military case history, when militaries have encountered UFOs, what has happened? What has happened? Well, we know from the Nimitz case what happened, that we tried to lock on our weapons onto them. And instead of blasting the Super Hornets, the Tic Tac strictly just turned off the weapon system. That's it. Didn't turn off the avionics, didn't turn off anything else. So I think that is a very benevolent act. And in fact, Fravor said they even did like a little rotation. He was up here, Tic Tac was down here, and they did this. They did like a little bit of a dance in the sky. And when he tried to lock on, when he tried to cut off the circle and lock on with his weapon systems, the Tic Tac was like, uh-oh, and cruised, but also shut off his weapon system with active jamming. Essentially what happened is that Tic Tac turned the other cheek in the face of violence. That's a very Christ-like way to respond. Think about it, gang, about the Tic Tac for just a moment. Think about that Tic Tac case. If this thing can move that fast, all right? If it can be invisible, if it chooses, and go from space through our atmosphere and into the water undetected, as it was, because there were submarines in the water and they did not detect the other craft in the water. One Tic Tac, I bet, if its weapon systems are as powerful as its camouflage and anti-gravity systems, one Tic Tac could take out that entire fleet in probably seconds if it wanted to. And some would say it was justified because we tried to attack it first by locking on our missiles. But no, it didn't do that. Instead, it did selective jamming only, and then it turned the other cheek and left. The Peru case, you guys should check out this case. It's an amazing case. The fighter pilot unloaded his machine guns on it. He fired his machine guns on it. And the UFO avoided it numerous times. And in fact, I've got a picture of that UFO over here. Where is it? Oh, this is the UFO from the Peru pilot. He drew this picture, actually. That's the craft he saw. It looks like a flying light bulb. Well, that was an amazing case. The UFO did the same thing, turned the other cheek. In Iran, General Jafari, the famous case where General Jafari was chasing down the UFO and tried to lock on his weapon systems. The same exact thing happened as the Nimitz. The weapon systems were shut off and the craft left, turned the other cheek. The Belgium case, same thing. Same exact thing. They scrambled jets and they turned the other cheek. All of these military base incursions, Malmstrom turning off our weapons, do you think that's malicious, like To the Stars thinks? To the Stars thinks, or at least Tom DeLonge says, that the UFOs were trying to start a nuclear war. That's not logical, especially when you look at all the other times UFOs have shined a light into the nuclear weapons areas, essentially saying, hello, this is bad. Nuclear is bad. Let's go to nuclear here for a second, because I think this is an important point. If they really care about us, they know how dangerous turning one of these switches is, right? They know how dangerous turning one of those switches is. Because radiation is nasty stuff. Radiation is really nasty. First, you get your radioactive material. It gets into the air, the soil. It gets into crops and animals. And it can go around in circles here and concentrate in these animals and in these other products like milk and meat and get more and more concentrated. This is not a joke, you know? This is serious, serious stuff. And I think when the UFOs point out, hey, maybe you shouldn't be messing with nuclear, maybe, just maybe, they've got a point. Anyway, there was also Rendlesham case. I think the Rendlesham case is very interesting because most people don't realize that Rendlesham, there were nuclear weapons there against like the treaty rules, the treaty laws that we had with the UK. And I think that's the reason why the UFOs were at Rendlesham. I think that's why they were there. What do you guys think? Oh, you do? Let's hear that real quick. Shannon, do you want to write up your story for us? Write it up in the chat here, and we'll talk about it in a minute. Rendlesham was another very peaceful case, pointing the light at the nuclear weapons. Minot, North Dakota, same thing, pointing the light at the nuclear weapons. These surely don't sound like malicious, evil creatures to me. They certainly don't sound malicious. And I think also a very famous UFO researcher criticized this book the other day. And said, oh, this book is written by, foo-foo, woo-woo people who, are just writing positive stories. And that's not the case. That's a big insult to a lot of huge, amazing experts in here. And the person who said that was Richard Dolan, and I was really, really surprised that he would impugn the character of these incredible scientists and researchers and really incredible people there, and some amazing research that was done. So this ship is flying. Interesting. All right, type it up, and we'll definitely get to it at the end here, gang. It's not going to be ultra long tonight. I didn't want to belabor this point too much. But let's think about this for a second. When we categorize these visitors as evil or bad, you instantly deny all of these possibilities. Of course, it's easier to get your program funded if you think they're a threat. Of course, military-industrial complex is made all of its money on fear and threat. That's how they make their money, on fear and threat. So we have to look at the reality here and what we could be missing by falsely judging these guys, by falsely judging these visitors. He has been very strange lately. He's been very odd lately. He's been less science-y and more, I don't know, it's been very interesting. So at Minot, North Dakota, and at Malmstrom, this is the rocket. It's the Minuteman III. And that's what the ETs were shining their light at. This rocket right here. That is in a whole bunch of little bases around Minot. There's a whole bunch of them, not just like one or two, but a whole bunch. These are all the countries that have nuclear weapons, and this is the location of nuclear blasts. That is a lot of toxic stuff that we're all exposed to. The nuclear toxins really fuck up an environment, and they're there for so long. Maybe that's why they're warning us about nuclear. Maybe they really know something that we don't. Maybe a lot of other civilizations, advanced civilizations, are destroyed by nuclear. That's the secret witness from the Nimitz case, Lieutenant Commander Alex Ann Dietrich. Witness to history, witness to peaceful ETs. They didn't attack her craft. She knows it. And she also saw something very interesting. She saw the rendezvous between the Tic Tac and the saucer. It's a very important case, perhaps the most important UFO case in history. And this, the most important UFO case in history, is a peaceful case. So, there's actually been a lot of research on craft and the peaceful nature of ETs. They haven't just shut off nuclear weapons and been able to somehow affect the control rooms, shielded control rooms. These craft have done a lot more. And I don't know, gang. I think they're a little closer by than we think. There's strong evidence to suggest that these craft have bases here. This is our famous Malmstrom incident report from ex-Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, who said, read the reports, we've got hundreds, Eric. 2-3 weeks ago, maybe a month now, up in Montana, they had another strange deal at a missile base up there. It goes on all the time. You know, gang, I was thinking about that comment from Senator Harry Reid, and we've been doing a lot of research on this case. And it's tough to get information on this case. It's very tough. We definitely know that there was a craft. We know that there was a 10-minute blackout on the base. We've called the base information officer. Multiple people have. This is the incident that happened this January. The evidence is pretty compelling. But we're missing a big part of the story, I think. Senator Harry Reid mentioned this case for a reason. When the reporter asked him what was the most compelling case, he mentioned this one first. So this is what I believe happened. I believe the ET craft shut off the missiles again. I bet the ET craft shut off the missiles again. And it was such a big story, it got to Senator Harry Reid. That's what I think happened. And that's why I think he mentioned it first when they asked him, what are some of the most compelling cases? And he said, well, Malmstrom, that just happened again. He must be thinking about that case a lot. For it to come to him first, he must have been thinking about that case a lot. Like, wow, it's amazing. It happened at Malmstrom again. That's definitely what I think happened. Especially after we've done all this research. That's what I think. Bubs, welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here, Bubs. We're talking about peaceful or evil aliens. What are they, based on their actions? Okay, guys, so now that we've gone through just a glossing over of the encounters with actual craft with the military, we find out the vast, their preponderance of them are all positive. We also find out that the abduction cases, it's very hard to call them all evil aliens because of those abduction cases. There's a lot of things going on there. And with the animal mutilations, it's even more hairy and more gray and even more unjust to claim all ETs are evil because of animal dissections and animal mutilations. So, I think when you look at the vast preponderance of evidence, any rational person who's really looking at the evidence has to say that they are not neutral, that they are peaceful. The vast majority are peaceful. And I think there's something really important to consider in that. And that question is, would we get more information from confronting or communicating? If you confront, you get to shoot them down. You can take the pieces and parts. You can get a lot of answers. Oh, there's some creatures on there. Where are they from? I don't know. Let's look through their systems. You can get a lot of information from confronting. But you can get a lot more from communicating. And you can get information you'll never get from confronting. And maybe our government is not smart enough to figure it out. Maybe they're trying things like linguists and hitting them with prime numbers, or like they did on that disc on Voyager. They had like a naked guy, like, nah! If I was an alien, I'd be like, whoa, 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 slow down there, brother. I don't need to see you naked first. But the music and animal sounds, that was cool. There is a universal kind of protocol between intelligent creatures. And you guys have been a part of it. You guys have seen interactions with yourself, with other animals of other species. And humans can communicate with other animals and other species. And it starts in a very rudimentary way. And there's a lot of secrets, and a lot of those are in our flow chart, the advanced protocols. But we would get so much more information from communicating than confronting. Just think about it. If we had repeat communication, which a lot of people, Shambhala, thank you for being here. A lot of people and a lot of CE5 groups and a lot of others, channelers and automatic writers and different things like that, have a lot of contact. Repeat contact. But imagine if we could have repeat contact on camera, live streamed. That would be amazing. And from communicating, you can learn so much information, so much data. It's not even funny. We could find out information to stuff that we've always dreamed of knowing. And they're definitely trying to communicate. There's many times when people will shine a flashlight at a craft and the craft will shine back and they'll have a little bit of a back and forth communication going. There is an attempt and a desire to communicate. And mimicry is a very powerful and information dense way of communicating. When you mimic something else, it kind of puts people at ease. It kind of puts the other at ease. It's like, oh, you understand, I understand. We're understanding both that we understand. But I think these craft are super intelligent, of course. And so after a couple flashes and a couple things, if we're not doing the next thing you're supposed to do, they're like, oh, forget it. These guys, they move on. Because they've got a bunch of stuff to do while they're here. And we've discussed what that is, right, gang? We know why they're here, right? Does anyone not know why they're here? Anyone not know? Well, it's the real reason why South Africa is very, exactly, Shambhala. That's the whole reason why South America is so popular. South America is the densest rainforest, the densest forms of life, the densest biosystem on the planet. Buddy Greer theory is true. Kix! Nice to see you, Kix. Thank you. Buddy Greer, what theory is that? Elvind, thank you for being here, Elvind. Thank you, appreciate it. Well, you know, guys, I think we're going to do something neat for a moment. We're going to go into why they're here again. You guys mind us doing that for a moment? They are what? Oh, yes, he does believe they're bad. We've been kind of fighting that. White Mouse, awesome. The gang is all coming together. This is beautiful. Beautiful. They're doing that, exactly. They're doing everything. They're doing archaeology. They're studying life forms To an advanced civilization, nothing is more valuable than knowledge. Data and knowledge is power. Information is power. With information, you can do amazing things that seem like true magic. And advanced civilizations treasure data. They have to treasure data and information more than anything. It's more valuable than gold or diamonds or any of that stuff that aliens can get in other places in much richer amounts. Life forms are the richest, densest form of data. There's so much data in a life form, not just in the physiology, but also in the biosystems that a life form is in. Because a life form is never in isolation. It's always in some sort of biosystem where there's interrelations and all sorts of different types of communication and data and information. And then living creatures at certain levels have more data and information, like consciousness, and there's tons of information in consciousness. So a life form is packed, filled with so much data, and that information actually is very valuable. And as an advanced civilization, you can literally see the mind of God in different life forms, because different life forms can evolve in different ways that perhaps even super advanced civilizations can't predict all the possibilities in their simulations. So they would look for different life forms in the universe and see if they followed different principles they had never expected. And that data and that information could be very powerful for them. You have to think about it for a moment. Think about how advanced our biology is now. Their knowledge and understanding of biology must be so much more vast than ours. They must be able to easily create life forms. Life forms that would make robots look like, stick toys. And that's what I think all the creatures are that are on board these craft. I think they're all second-generation life forms created for traveling the universe, created for being researchers, created for all sorts of different reasons. And I think even on occasion you get to see really cool aspects of them. There's a famous school called the Ariel School, and it's a very famous UFO case where the UFO landed and the Greys came out, and a girl was like jumping down on a log, and she looks next to her, and the Grey was kind of like jumping, playing next to her on a log, and she's like, ah! And there's lots of little moments where Zimbabwe, thank you, Zimbabwe. And I was kind of fascinated with how many moments I could find of ETs playing. And that's one of the only times I found like an ET actually playing. But many times I've seen craft, tiny, small craft kind of playing around each other. And it seems like they're acting like brand new life forms. They're just kind of constructed and turned on and dropped into our atmosphere, and they play around for a moment because they're alive. They're testing out their abilities, bzz, 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 and then they go off and do their thing because they're pre-programmed. But I believe they're living life forms. So we're dealing with some really interesting data and information here, gang. Think about it. An advanced life form is visiting our planet. And not just visiting our planet, these advanced life forms are letting us know they're visiting us. Marco, thank you for being here. You have to realize that they're letting us know they're here for a reason. They're not trying to frighten us and shock us and scare us and do anything horrific, or I think they could have done it very quickly and very easily. They are the ones disclosing. It's not the government disclosing, they are the ones disclosing. And I think they're disclosing more and more as time passes. There's been a lot more sightings of fleets lately, it seems like. In a lot of these ATIP reports, there are scores of these craft dropping in from space. And they're not just seen one day, but they're seen doing this for a week or 2 weeks at a time. This is really serious stuff, gang. If we are correct, if the theory is correct that they are here to gather as much data and samples, biological samples, as they can, to preserve as much as they can of this planet, because they know we're in the middle of a mass extinction. This planet is in the middle of a mass bioextinction. There's no doubt about it. If that is true, that the craft are here doing that, they're overtly letting us know that our biosphere is for crap and that we're destroying ourselves and that we could kill ourselves. Boogie Doctor, thank you for being here. If they're really doing all of that and they're really here gathering that data, we might be able to use that understanding, that connection, to make a connection with them. That might be a special grounds of the communication right there, because we both share that objective deeply. And I think that's why CE5 groups are being successful. That's why time and time again, when people meet with ET on one level or another, the message is always the environment. It's never cash. It's never, hey, could you do our space laundry? No. It's always, always about the environment. I want to tell you guys, thank you so much for being here and your time. We're going to go on for about another 20 minutes. For some reason, Super Chat's not working. If you wanted to make a donation or any of that stuff, it could go to PayPal. I mean, just really appreciate your time and everything. So let's think about this for a second, gang. If they're really here collecting data and collecting specimens, I believe the only reason why the Tic Tacs are rendezvousing with the saucers is something you can deduce logically. Any form of data they can send electronically, right? They wouldn't need to physically connect unless there was something physical that needed to be exchanged. Something physical is exchanging, right? You have to deduce that. It's either fuel or samples. And what I believe is happening is the Tic Tacs go out and get the samples, come back to the saucers stage underwater because it's safer and they're not going to be bothered as much. And they store up the samples. And then the saucers go off to a mothership, which is probably on, the other side of the moon or somewhere. So that's what's happening. The Tic Tacs actually have smaller craft that go out and get stuff and bring the samples back to it. And it goes to the saucers. Saucers store and hold on until they get enough to leave the atmosphere. And that's what's going on. They're saving and preserving our biosphere and the data from it, which is stunning. If that's really true, then they see the clock is ticking fast. They're sending as much as they can into the Amazon forest right now. They're coming in from all around. That's why all those South American countries are like, we have a lot of UFO sightings. But they're in a race against time because the deforestation in South America is horrific. If you go to Google Earth and look at how quickly and how much of it's gone, it's like literally 3/4 of the rainforest is gone. Gone, 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 stripped to the ground, gone. They don't even know how to properly harvest wood. They just strip everything right to the ground. We don't even know how many species have been lost forever. We have no idea how many species have been lost forever. And there may come a tipping point where once we hit that tipping point, we can't recover. And maybe these advanced civilizations that are visiting us know a little something that we're not taking as seriously as we should. Exactly, Kicks. The ecological message has been consistent, resoundingly consistent, time and time and time and time again. They never say dry cleaning. Would you do our dry cleaning? It's not about fossil fuels. It's not about free energy. It's about us not killing ourselves. You know? It's so funny that we call them a threat, and we're the ones with the nuclear weapons. We're the ones who bomb people and kill people and gas people and microwave them and do all sorts of crazy things. So, when you think about it, gang, the ETs are doing something else, though. They're doing something else very interesting. For about 70 years, they have been doing another kind of disclosure. They have been teaching us how to create craft that can leave this planet a little easier. They've been crashing UFOs. Everyone always wonders, how can a UFO fly all the way across the universe and then crash? That doesn't make any sense. And how can it happen so many times? It doesn't make any sense. It makes zero sense, because obviously the craft should be strong and powerful enough to make it through the universe to get here. Why are all these UFOs crashing? There's only one reason I can think of that makes sense, is that they're doing it on purpose. They're teaching us how to build these craft. And they're taking experiencers on board the craft and teaching them how to fly it. That's why in ATIP, after studying all of the incidents that happened, ATIP came up with a list of 38 contracts that Hal Puthoff distributed. And that's not a joke, it's a fact. And you can see some of those contracts are about things like controlling multiple independent spacecraft with your mind, the control of craft without using your hands or limbs. Multiple different contracts were issued for flying a spacecraft without traditional means, like your hands or any appendage. So there is a lot going on, gang. This is some intense stuff. And the clock is ticking big time. I think they're teaching us to create these craft and fly these craft because they know how bad it is for us right now. They know how dangerous society is right now. And they're telling us, you're going to need to get off this planet. If you want your species to survive, you're going to need to learn to get off this planet. And that's why they've crashed a lot of craft in every major country, in Russia and China and the US, plenty of times. So we have a lot of different stuff to learn from, toys to play with. And in fact, earlier systems were, it's almost as if they were created to teach us. It's very interesting, guys, when you consider that UFOs throughout history have constantly, in their appearance, they've represented near future technology. Before we had blimps and airships, UFOs turned up as airships. They had these crazy UFO sightings where they were blimps. Before we had blimps. And people were hanging on ropes. And I've told this story before, but I find it really fascinating. One of these very famous stories about the airships in the airship days, when these mystery UFO airships were landing all over the country, there was a reoccurring thing that kept happening. I think his name was Smith. Was it Mr. Smith? multiple people reported the same gentleman, and he said he was from Goshen, New York, and he was on one of these UFO airships back in the 1800s. And multiple people reported meeting Mr. Smith, and that he would land his craft and he'd get out of the craft and he'd say, "Hi, I'm from Goshen, New York, and this is a craft I built, and can I have a glass of water or something to drink?" And that's the story that was repeated a bunch of times. Fascinating. But that craft that he landed in was before blimps existed. And before we had rockets, there was the ghost rockets. There were these cigar-shaped craft that had fire and smoke behind them before we had rockets. And before we had triangle craft, like the B-2 and everything. Before we had triangle craft, they were flying triangle craft. So they have been teaching us. And I believe they're trying to teach us how to get off this planet, because there's a clock ticking. And there's a convergence of all these things that could happen. Many, many, many different possibilities. And one of the bizarre little theories I have, and it's just a notion, that societies ultimately, as technology gets more and more powerful, at some point a biological creature and a biological race has a choice of going technological or staying biological. When you go technological, you can be immortal, you have a hive mentality, you become so much smarter, all these different things. And that's what a more advanced society would want, most likely, right? But once you lose biologicalness, once you're an all non-biological creature, I think that could be dangerous over time. A non-biological creature over time could become something very bizarre over hundreds of thousands of years. And so I have a theory that there are non-biologicals out there, and the non-biologicals are spreading at a very fast rate, and the biologicals know about them and try to avoid them, and there could even be a war between the two. Who knows? Who knows? Biologicals versus post-biologicals. Anyway, we're at 47 minutes, and well, one more issue before we go into questions. For the post-biologicals, I was talking about the biologicals versus non-biologicals. I spoke briefly about this the other day. These are the Nuremberg carving, and then the other one, I forget which one is from Sweden, I think, and the other one was from Nuremberg. Two different dates. One was 1561, and one was 1566, where they had the UFO battle in the skies. This was pretty amazing. Maybe that's what happened during that event, that the non-biologicals came here, and we were defended by the biologicals. Look at that giant triangle. Doesn't that thing look a little familiar? There's one burning down there in the background. This wood carving is really fascinating. Really fascinating. This one was more spheres. But cool. Anyway, well, let's dive into some questions. You guys want to do that? Let's do it. I love you guys. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate your guys' time and listening to these thoughts, and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. A question. Whose AP guesstimate is driving to the Tic Tacs? Mantids, post-biological, grays, etc.? Thank you. Wow, that's a great question. I think a second generation life form is piloting them for a humanoid type race. That is what I believe. It seems UFOs really love diving into lakes and water. I think oftentimes UFOs need to be hidden somewhere and stage there while the other smaller craft collect information and samples for them, or need to stay there to pick up the vast amount of electronic signals that can only be picked up from closer by, or study things underwater as well. So I think there's a lot of great reasons for the craft to hide in water. Water is a great place to hide, and very logical on this planet. You don't want to be parked out on the land. It's just not logical. So water is a beautiful place to hide. You don't want to be all the way behind the moon or something like that. That's why they're most often seen underwater and in mountains. It seems like those are the two locations that they stay at. And there's several specific mountains. Batman Astronaut asked, why don't the visitors stake their intentions at nuclear spots and do subs have encounters? There have been a couple sub encounters, but what they discovered recently is that the metamaterial that surrounds these UFOs is completely acoustically invisible. And if you look at the slides from Luis Elizondo's speech 2 times ago, it talks about how these craft are visibly and in many different ways completely invisible to all of our sensors, including acoustically. And during the Nimitz incident, oftentimes when they have battle groups out doing stuff, there's a submarine with them. And that submarine didn't see anything out there. And the pilots, multiple pilots, saw the craft in the water. So there was a much larger craft in the water than the Tic Tac. So hopefully that answered that question. I think. I can't even remember what the question was now. Why don't they? Oh, why don't they state their intentions at nuke spots? I think they do state their intentions at nuke spots really clearly. When they go to the nuclear sites, they're like, hello, they beam light. Hello, this is bad. They allow themselves to appear. That's very dangerous for them. It's a very dangerous thing for them to allow themselves to appear. They know how unpredictable humans are, and they know how violent humans are. So when they appear, they're really putting themselves at jeopardy, and I think they're doing that out of care for us. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. Kat, what was Kat's next question? Should I just answer him as I see him? Is it possible to remote view Atlantis? It is, if it exists. It is possible. I've never tried. It's not really my thing. If you can travel space, water, nothing we cannot go. Okay, I see. Okay, Batman Astronaut asks, what do you think? What do I think is driving them? I think probably. I think they're large enough to have a life form or two in them, and still all the power and propulsion systems. So I think there's probably small grays in them, or humanoids, types of humanoids. Will be, yes, there are going to be more videos released from them. In fact, we've shown the pictures of the discs of them. There's 4 discs from the Department of Defense, and they're still going through clearances, but I think those are the 4 new videos that are going to come out soon. That was in the Chris Mellon link, the pictures of them. It's cool to see a DVD from the Department of Defense, and it says unclassified on it. So, but apparently they have much more video from the Nimitz incident, and the video is a lot clearer. So I've been saying that for a while, that they have a really clear image of a saucer. Okay, any more questions? Okay. Kicks. What could I do with the God helmet? Oh, Kicks. Oh, Kicks. That's a dangerous, dangerous question. Apparently, the God helmet increases the power of any psi user, any psi ability. That's what they say, and I think it might be true. I would use it to do as much good as I could. I would use it for healing and world peace and stuff like that. My feelings about the Sasquatch UFO connection. I hate to say this, but I think it's not even appropriate to call it Sasquatch. I think there may be a wide variety of different creatures that can be constructed. Remember before when I was saying how human life forms are one of the densest forms of data, and that an advanced civilization would really want to study life forms because they're so dense in data. There's so much information you could learn. You could transform your body and have gills one day, or for your super advanced civilization, and flippers on your feet and on your hands. And then the next day have them gone because you're going skiing and you have a thicker coat of fur on you a week later. You know, you could do that in a super advanced civilization. So with Bigfoot, you never know what kind of creatures there could be. There has been quite a few cases where they had big different furry things of different types. So, but personally, I'm not a big believer in Bigfoot. I hate to say that. I don't believe in Bigfoot. Ricky Omang. What did Ricky say, Super? Did he say something bad? Thank you for being so deft, too. How good is Super? Super's like, time out, and asks a great question. She's such a badass. She really is. I love that woman. I love that woman. Ian asks, could experiencer trainees be crashing the craft on accident? That is such a great question. Wow, that is such a great question. That is such a great question. Yes. But I don't think they would actually allow us to do that. I think there would be, in fact, I know there are built-in safety features for all that different stuff. So even when their best pilots are piloting them, there could be a micrometeorite coming in a certain way that it's not in their sensory range or whatever, and the craft does have it in its sensory range, so it would do an adjustment. That's the benefit of pairing your intelligence. You can really depend on each other, and you can watch each other's back, so to speak. So I don't know if I answered that or not. Trainees craft. Yeah, so I don't think trainees could actually crash them, but I think it was a really funny, great question. I love it. There's some questions earlier, too, that I missed. Let me see if I can scroll up really fast and find any of them. That was too funny. That was a really funny question. The Nazca lines of life forms. You know what's really cool about the Nazca lines is that the earliest ones are the petroglyphs, the animals, the large animals. And almost all of the petroglyphs, you can't tell their beauty unless you're from above. You really can't. And it's obvious that the people made them for the benefit of their gods, correct? They wanted their gods to look down and see that and be pleased with them. But what gods were they talking about? That whole area seems to be on the UFO highway from Peru into the rainforest. So I have a feeling that they saw those craft flying over them back and forth going to the rainforest and were like, hey, let's say something beautiful to our gods, because we know they're going there for the animals. They love the animals too. So here's the animals. Does that make sense to you guys? Ricky Omang says, concerned that the ETs are abducting us, and would they feel less people if we abducted them? Well, hi, Ricky. You didn't come in, I guess, earlier and hear our thoughts on the abductions, but really quickly, I'll repeat. One is we don't know that all the abductions are aliens. There's a big deal about a lot of people believing that they're not all aliens. I think there's a very high percentage of abduction cases that are associated, to be frank, let's be honest and be open and transparent here, with mental illness. There's a lot of that, and we have to be very, very, very honest about that. I think there's also some very, very, very compelling cases that you can't deny with implants that have unearthly isotopes. I mean, that's some pretty hardcore evidence, right? But when you look at things like the meta-study, the Beyond UFO meta-study, the vast, vast, vast majority of those cases are peaceful. And if not better than peaceful, beneficial. And as we were saying earlier, I'm sure an animal in a zoo thinks the veterinarian that comes in and gives them shots and flips them over and stuff like that is a horrible, terrible thing, but the veterinarian just might be saving its life. Where can you see pictures of the upcoming unclassified vids? You know what? I don't have it on this computer. I have it on my phone. Maybe I might have. Let me just check here while we're talking. There is a small chance I have it here. But, there's something else I could do. I might lose you if I switch over on my phone. But I do have pictures they're just green pictures of the DVDs. Let me see if I have them here. Boop, doop, doop, boop, 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 okay, I don't see them here. But I want to show you a picture of them. Where can you see them? Thoughts on David Wilcox? Oh man, it's so sad because I used to really love David Wilcox, but he's one of those guys who's like, he's just desperate for attention. He's got some really good ideas, but he knew the whole Corey Good thing was BS from the beginning. He's totally in that conspiracy with him. He's got great thoughts about a lot of things, He talked early on about a lot of subjects that have bared fruit over time, and but sadly, he said he was the living incarnation of Edgar Casey, I think, and all these other things. He's gone through all sorts of different, types of, I think he's full of crap. I'm sorry. He's just, a leaping bull crapper now. In my opinion, I hope I don't offend too many people, but that's my feeling in my heart. So I'm sorry if I upset anybody. Ricky asks, how do we know that ETs don't lie? That's a great question. We don't know that, and I don't know that. I would presume a couple things, though. Most advanced civilizations, we can see it happening to us now. I think most advanced civilizations have a collective consciousness. They're all individuals, but they have a collective consciousness. And it's happening to us now. We're starting to share so much information. We can communicate with people around the world now. We can communicate with anybody. We're really close to having a collective consciousness right now. When you think about it, we literally are all electronically connected now. And we can connect to each other and call. I can literally call someone around the world, connect them. I can see them. It's really weird. We're almost a collective consciousness already. And I think many of these advanced civilizations are such a collective consciousness that lying doesn't even work. It would just sound stupid. It wouldn't even make sense. Which actually sounds really cool to have. How much more efficient would a society be where there was no lying? You just save all that time. It's like, phew. Because if you're in a collective consciousness and someone lies, it just sounds stupid. You're Superman. What are you talking about? So anyway, that was my thought on that really quick. Okay. Anyway, I know I missed a few questions there. I'm sorry. Thank you so much, Super. I really appreciate your help in this. Do you think we are close to full disclosure? Oh, yeah. And it's moving quickly. It's moving quickly that way, and disclosure is in all of our hands. So there's so much to disclose. Honestly, I think if we had congressional hearings and that we offered everybody amnesty for all, just to put everything on the table. The environment, we're in a mass extinction. We don't have time to waste. We could go any minute. If advanced civilization is worried as shit about us, we should be worried as shit too. That's my thought on that. We're close to full disclosure. Okay. What did I miss? Okay. Let me see what questions I'm missing here. Any questions? Did I read Leslie Kean's book? No, I didn't read the book. Do I believe in near-death experiences can be linked to you? Absolutely. I think they can be related. In fact, I see many times that people can have a close to death experience and their psychic stuff goes through the roof. And I think what happens is when you have a near-death experience, when you almost die, you realize that you should not cut yourself off from any possibility in life. And you open your mind to different possibilities and textures. And I've seen time and time again people get a huge boost in their ESP or psi accuracy after some sort of traumatic event. It happens time and time again. Let me see. Enjoy hearing your arguments for why ETs are peaceful. Well, I think it's a solid argument. It's not just an argument. I think it's the vast preponderance of the evidence empirically says that ETs are not just neutral. They're more than benevolent. They're actually caring. And I think that's what the vast majority of the evidence says. Think about this for a moment. If ETs were a race of humans, and we said the things about them that we do about ETs, they're a threat. They're a threat. They're stronger than us, so they're a threat. Some of them abduct our women. It almost sounds racist, doesn't it? Categorizing all of them as a threat just because maybe one or two did some bad things. I don't know, just a thought. All right, Batman, thank you again, Kat. I really appreciate it. Oh, yeah. Do I believe they're linked to the UAP phenomena? Okay, so once you have the near-death experiences and your psychic and your ESP and all that stuff is boosted up, your connection to the Lyman is increased. And that's also to ET craft. So because of that, you definitely have an instant attraction to craft. Instant attraction to craft. Batman Astronaut wonders if they have a do not harm contract. You can be absolutely certain of that. I think that is part of their agenda. I think it's pretty clear by their actions. When we have tried to be violent to them, they have not been violent back to us, time and time again. There's cases where they've even saved our lives. There's a famous case, 1953, the Mansfield, Ohio case, where a helicopter crew was in a helicopter and they saw a UFO. Exactly, it was just like freaking Star Trek what happened. And this is the exact what the UFO looked like. It had a light in the back, a red one, a yellow in the center, and a green one on the tip right here. And the helicopter was frightened, and the young pilot went into a super steep dive, really steep. And the UFO hit it with a tractor beam, like right out of Star Trek, and lifted it up twice its altitude, then waited till it was stabilized and let it go. Does that sound like a threat to you guys? I don't know. Okay, a couple more questions. Thank you guys so much for your time. I really can't tell you how much I appreciate your time and your spirit and your questions. I think together we can solve some of these mysteries, and we can crowdsource some of these mysteries and keep working together and get some answers. Super, you should leave your email for them too, so they can contact you as well too. Guys, Super is amazing, has a lot of information on all this stuff also, from CE5s to everything. So have I seen the video of the U.S. Marine that went to a UFO crash site in Peru? Thoughts? Shannon, Scott, that I have. That's the Wigand or Wyland. Yes, we're talking about that case. There is another witness who is saying the exact same thing, and there's some documents that say the exact same thing. So that is a real case, and we are investigating that case, and we want you to help us. There's a bunch of things we can do to find out about that case. and things we can do to prove that case. It's a big, big case. It's a big, big deal. Think about it, Shannon Scott. They're shooting down UFOs. Radar station, laser sight. Radar station, laser sight. I have that one document, and in about a few days, we're going to do a follow-up on our Peru investigation. And we have some images from Google Earth. I want to show you guys that look like we found one of the stations, one of the sites, and we would love for you guys also to search Google for the ones as well too. Do you think Jeremy Corbell is legit, or is he balls deep inside the government? Balls deep. No, I don't think he's inside the government. I think he's a good filmmaker. At first, he had all these movies lined up, but none of them had been released yet. And I was like, this guy's full of crap. What is he doing, shooting 9 movies at once? But in a weird way, a lot of them kind of intertwined. And I think he's done a decent job. I believe him. I like the work he's doing. I wouldn't do it the way he does it, but, you know, it's his thing. He puts himself in too much of it. I'd rather see just the people. Okay. Let me see. Never seen work for craft from restaurants. Okay. Near death. Okay. What do you think was in the Phoenix Lights versus Craft? Okay, the Phoenix Lights was 2 different things going on. The famous footage of the lights going over the mountain, they've done some really perfect analysis, and when the lights flicker out, it's exactly in line with where the mountain is. So it really looks like flares, that famous piece of footage. But like 2 hours earlier, there's so much testimony from so many good witnesses, there was another craft there. And so what I think happened was a real craft was sighted in the area. The military knew it and said, let's scramble some jets and drop some flares and make people believe that was it. Because it was hours afterwards that that famous footage was taken, where you see the city and the mountain in the background on the UFO. So that's what I think happened with Phoenix. It was definitely a real case, but then the government tried to muddle the waters. Not surprising, right, gang? If you guys want to support this channel and our investigations, please check out our PayPal. We really would appreciate it. Love you guys very much. We live in your years. Why do you believe we don't see interact with more types of ET? I think that's a great question, Ricky. There's the Fermi paradox. How come we don't see more ETs? And I think it's for a pretty logical reason. If the universe was completely peaceful, I think you would see more ETs. But I think an advanced civilization is let's say in a civilization that's 10,000 years more advanced than us, would be justifiably concerned and fearful about a civilization 100,000 years more advanced than it. And then that 100,000 year civilization is probably worried about civilizations that are 200,000 years more advanced than it. So I think everybody chooses to stay as invisible as they can. And the thing is, all of these people who choose to stay invisible are more advanced civilizations than us, so they're better at staying invisible. Their earlier pollution from their electromagnetic wave pollution probably passed us or whatever a long time ago, so we're not going to be picking it up. Or maybe it's coming to us soon in the future. We may be able to find those little short periods of time in a civilization's existence before they go black, so to speak, when they pollute the universe with some of their early electromagnetic field waves. We might be able to find some civilizations like that in time. But I think that's why we don't see more, is because they're hiding. It's logical, wouldn't you? The universe doesn't have to be hostile. It's just a safer position, you know, to be invisible. That's the solution to the Fermi paradox. Okay, more questions. But that's just my opinion, of course, obviously. Neat, gang. We're running out of questions and we're running out of time. Pretty darn cool. I want to mention one more thing really quickly. And that is with this recent information that we found out about people getting injured by supposedly UFO craft, and they're all going to a series of like 4 military doctors. And these people are, according to their own words, super high functioning individuals. They are members of special forces. They are members of aerospace companies and security guards. And they're getting mass dosage of electromagnetic fields, microwaves, and gamma rays. And to me, that only says one thing for sure. We have anti-gravity, gang. I think the government has anti-gravity system that's out there. It deals with the rotating electromagnetic fields. I think we found out about that rotating superconducting magnets and all that stuff create toroidal electromagnetic fields. But in order to do that, to create your anti-gravity, you have the two, one going this way and the other going that way, so you have 2 donut shapes. And the craft literally sits in the center donut, so you don't get all that bad EMF. But you need something super powerful to power that electromagnetic field. But unfortunately, with nuclear, you have to have a lot of shielding to prevent gamma rays from coming out. So I think that's exactly what's happening. We have these craft that are made by Lockheed Martin and others that have these rotating electromagnetic fields, and they're powered by a dirty nuclear engine that doesn't have an appropriate amount of shielding because they want it to be as light as possible to fly. And I think there's very strong evidence to prove that there is a craft like that. And I think those brain scans are pretty strong evidence. You don't get much more nuts and bolts evidence than that, right, gang? When you see someone dying from exposure to this craft, I think that's really criminal behavior. If Lockheed Martin or any of those aerospace companies are building craft that they know are injuring people or can injure people, that is some really sick stuff. That is some really cynical stuff. Let's take a quick look, though, at that injury one more time. Before we go, gang, we're going to wind up here. This is that case. This is amazing. Let's look at this image a little closer here, shall we? Patient 1, following near-field exposure to unidentified aerial craft at 500 meters. The patient died 2 weeks later. You want to hear something weird? Someone did a remote viewing of this brain. Do you guys want to hear that remote viewing? And a remote viewing of another patient that was injured? Do you guys want to hear that? Yeah? Okay, let's see if we have it. Let's see if I have it. Oh, yeah, here it is, I think. Okay, here we go. You want to see it? Oh, no, this isn't the one, is it? Okay. All right, just give me a minute and I'll find it. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I thought it would be a cool thing to do looking at that brain after a while, saying, you know what? Maybe it would be neat to do a remote viewing of that brain and see where they are. All right. Let me see if I can find it now. What did I put it under? Okay, here we go. Any more questions? Just feel free. And if anybody needs anything, if you need CE5 manuals, if you need tips on psi ability, it would be our pleasure to send you Some really cool tips we have, and training tips, and little things you can do. Let's see, is it under here? I remember where it was. Oh, it's going to be in writing somewhere. Here we go. Let me see. Dana's confrontation. Is that it? Is that under confrontation? You guys are still with me. You guys are awesome. Our family's the best. Our family is the best. Let's see if I have it on the bottom of this document. And if you want to support us, we would be so blessed and thankful. Let me see if I put it on this document just in case. Oh, just so you guys can see the God helmet he was talking about before. Here's the God helmet. This thing is amazing. Look at that thing. It sends rotating electromagnetic fields around the brain. Pretty cool. And here's the original version, the first version. It was kind of like a motorcycle helmet. Right? How funny is that thing? That is too funny. Okay, let's see. Open recent. It's probably going to be a recent one. All right, let me see if I can find where I did that remote viewing. Maybe here. Let me check. Oh, I think I know where it is now. I think I remember. It's in Big Questions. Something called Big Questions. Give me just a second, gang. Thank you. So I just had the idea, you know what? I wonder who this person was who died 2 weeks after getting dosed. And so I did a viewing. I pulled out the picture of the brain, and I decided to get into the patient. Remote viewing of patient number 1, male. Mostly Caucasian, has some Irish, these are more distant, Irish, Latino, and Russian heritage. He was outdoors near a fencing. The craft came up behind in the woods. I'm going to turn down the brightness because it's going in and out of the screen. It looks like it's a little hard to see. So I'm going to raise this up a little bit. I'm going to unplug my phone so I can get closer. Okay, there we go. The UFO came from behind the woods, and it was about 2,000 feet up in the air vertically and was about 1,000 feet away from line of sight. It was a white-orange light at first, and there was a craft that became evident inside. It flew directly over them. He's a guard at a facility. There's nuclear materials close by. There were men in a control room. This sounds like it's a missile base almost. There were humans in a control room that did not witness the event. Outside this military area, there's a lot of rural country fields and woods. Got a couple of names, Ed, Lee, and Oscar. These are names associated with the person. And remember, he's patient number 1, so one day we will find out who that is. Tim, welcome, Tim. Thank you for being with us. And see him on a military helicopter, and then see 2 little people, maybe children, maybe something else. But one of the children has a vision issue. So that was the weird thing we got. And then the next one was patient number 2. There was a patient number 2. Here we go. Here's patient number 2. Patient number 2 survives to this day. Got the name David around him. Either his name is David or like his brother's name is David or someone very close to him is named David. He was a scientist he is a scientist at Lockheed Martin. We can research this, right? He's a male. He's a super smart scientist. He's working on this technology, and he had a real UFO experience also. So I think the universe sometimes has a sense of humor. If you joke about something, or if you work on a UFO technology, the universe will actually expose you to a real UFO. It's that hermetic mercurialism. Hermetic mercurialism is real, as Super and I know very well after employing some hermetic mercurialism in a PK experiment that she and I did that had some pretty extraordinary results, pretty stunning results, and have used hermetic mercurialism several times for different things. Do I think hedge fund managers are using remote viewing? No, I don't. I think they're using a bunch of other tricks like super fast computers and programs to make money faster than any other traders can. That's exactly what really is happening with a lot of these different super companies. Are able to do stuff that others can't afford to do, like super fast trades and stuff. They can even find out information, like see a stock crashing, and their computers are so fast they can do reactions even after the information has come out and still save or make money based on that stuff. So you don't stand a chance versus computers and programs like that, right? So the stock market is rigged. That's rigged. So, well, guys, I think we're pretty close there. We've almost gone an hour and a half. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Is there any more questions we missed? And then we'll do one more thing before we go. And what we do is our Maharishi effect prayer. I'm just going up and making sure I didn't miss any questions, any big questions. Okay, it looks good. Looks like I didn't miss any big questions. All right. Okay, let's go all the way down to the end. You can make money with remote viewing, but I highly don't recommend it. I think remote viewing is all about, and all of these arts are all about forgetting the material world. And using remote viewing to make money, or using any of these arts to make money, to me seems like a contradiction. It seems like a contradiction. And I also think the puckish way the universe works, if you do that, the universe is going to undermine you a little bit. Like, for example, with the healing stuff we do, we never accept money for healing to do it or afterwards, because that's just bad karma. We do it because we love doing it. And recently someone offered to give us money and wanted to give us a donation after we had a successful healing event with them, and really wanted to give us a donation. And no, we don't want one in those conditions. How thankful are we to have been trusted? How thankful are we to just be in that position where something amazing happened? So anyway, money and remote viewing and money and the arts is a very weird thing for me. I think everyone deserves to make money for their gifts and for their talent. But, you know, for me, I just have a real weird thing with it. I don't know. You'd love to hear what people try to... Super, did I miss a question there? Or are you talking about the silver markets thing? Also, too, I want you guys to think about, so before we sign off, we've still got 29 people here. This is awesome. What a great room. I love you guys. This is fun. We could do our Maharishi prayer and pick a location or a group that needs healing and help. And we'll use the power of 29 people's intent. And these are badass people, so it's going to be very powerful. I have a couple thoughts. You know, I'm going to throw out my thought. My thought is to reduce the damage from the radiation that's all over the earth. All the radioactive bombs, Fukushima, all the everything that's been covering this planet. You know, every time a satellite comes back into the orbit and disintegrates, oftentimes they have little nuclear fuel cells and all sorts of other toxins that burn up and we're inhaling. And I was just thinking about trying to make them inert, all those toxins inert. Shambhala's aunt is in the hospital, gang. Let's include her. Shambhala's aunt is in the hospital. Remember this, Shambhala's aunt. Shambhala's aunt. Love and healing. Shambhala's aunt. Let's see, any more questions here? Ricky, yes, you can do that. I've gone to casinos numerous times and made a large chunk of money, but I just, sometimes, you know, it's not a good idea. Well, gang, that's it. We're out of here. We did it. 90 minutes. We shared a lot of love. We talked about a lot of cool different topics. I think we pretty definitively looked at the evidence and saw that the ETs are peaceful. There's no other rational way to look at the preponderance of the evidence. If you guys want to help us with our Peru investigation, keep looking, keep digging, go to Google Earth and keep looking for it. If there's anything we can do to help you guys, if you need CE5 tips, meditation tips, ESP tips, any of that stuff, it's our pleasure. We've got a bunch of awesome information for you guys. Remote viewing, everything. Our pleasure to help. And if anyone needs healing, remember Shambhala's aunt and Mark's mom. Oh, Mark's mom is in the hospital. All right, let's pray for Mark's mom as well, too. Everyone. Pray for Mark's mom. Big prayers for Mark's mom. I love you guys. I'm not going to hang up first. You guys have to hang up first. Thank you so much, Super. I love you. Thank you so much for your support. Everybody, thank you so much for supporting this channel so much and your time. It's so deeply appreciated. And this has been really fun to explore this topic because this is a really cool, exciting topic. And to use the power of our minds to unravel some of this mystery and use the power of our minds to have collective, crowdsourced investigations. So please continue with the Malmstrom investigation. If you have anything you can do, any information, email us. Peru, the same thing, email us. Oh, Julie, we'll send prayers for his strength and stability. We'll send prayers. Is he feeling like he has a negative entity? If he said anything like that to you, let me know. Yeah, we should do it as an organized grid search, would be smarter than the way we're doing it now. I have an image that maybe I might want to show you, Shannon, that has some sites specifically as dots that we need to look at, that I'm trying to search, but it's hard because it's still a lot of area. So anyway, much love, gang. Thank you guys so much. Support us at PayPal. Really appreciate it. Much love to you and yours and your families.